fun facts or just some information about the podcast. We've been doing this podcast since, what is it, June? July?
July of actually, you know what? Here's a fun fact. This time a year ago, we were talking about I think I was talking to I Trust. He randomly jumped on my show and we were talking about bringing you on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
we're
was exactly around this time too.
yeah, it was about the end of February and we're saying like, "Hey, let's get you on and see how things go." And June was when we started to crank things out, when we started to line everything up for the podcast. But I think our very first episode was July 1st.
Right. Mm-hmm. So just some quick information for people who have kind of seen the amount of content that we've been putting out. I'm pretty sure this is just a guess, but outside of the podcast, Rojas and I have probably done close to 100 live streams together. That's just the ballpark. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch on my channel, a bunch on his channel, and now we're starting to do live streams on Beyond the Streams. But aside from that, if we're talking about podcast episodes in itself, we've actually passed now 100 episodes on the podcast. And I think that's an achievement all in its own. Like when we got started, we were like, we should do a podcast. And we never, since the moment we talked about it and we agreed to do a podcast, Rojas and I have not taken a break. We didn't stop to look at what we were doing. We just plowed right through it and we continued to plow right through it and continue to add more and more onto our plate so we can keep continuing to make content for you guys. Like we got to a point where like, okay, we have a format for our podcast. Now what? All right, so let's start a clips channel, right? It wasn't like, okay, we can sit back and we can chill out because we're cranking out all this work. No, we were like, all right, what else can we do? What can we add to the fire? And the clips channel, honestly, I love it because there are people that religiously watch the clips channel and leave comments on everything. And the clips are usually between 2 to 10 minutes long, specific to whatever the topic is. And a lot of times people don't have a whole hour and a half to watch a whole podcast. So they're more likely to comment on these clips. And I love going back and reading them. I may not comment that much or reply to them, but I absolutely love the clips and the comments on the clips as well as the podcast. They're great.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think the people want me to get some mousse in that hair. Should I put some product? I was looking at the back end of this. I'm like, damn, man, it's freaking out of control here. Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out Clips, BS Clips is a great place where you could just digest our full episodes, just little bits and pieces. It's a really good platform right there. So some people don't like to listen to the entire podcast. And some people just play it in the background while they're at work, while they're chilling. So check out Clips. Sometimes you might even miss something that we might have said in the podcast episode, and you'll find it in the clip. 100%. So just check it out.
It's funny that you say that because we've actually clipped from our very first podcast episode. We've kind of randomized it. Well, you're scheduling them out. Over months and a period of time. So there's some clips that are done back from July or August or September that people have never actually seen because they didn't catch those podcast episodes, and they're catching them now and they're like, oh, I didn't know you did this or whatever. And it's really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah. Just wanted to do a very quick shout out. Mike C, I got to meet him last night. He was wanting a PS5. I actually had several people said, dude, if you could hook me up with a PS5, hook me up with PS5. And you know what? They're hard to get. They are very hard to get. Like you have to get on the apps, the websites. You have to get logged in. Next Level has a PS5. Anybody that wants one, there it is. But yeah, Mike says I had the chance of seeing that hair up and close in person last night. Yeah, it was nuts. But yeah, if anybody does want a PlayStation 5, again, Next Level's got one. And if anybody wants us to look for them and do the research, I'll be straightforward with it. I don't charge an arm and a leg, but I do upsell it because it's a lot of time to get one. And I mean, it's a lot of time, like doing the research, waiting in line, signing it up, and then making sure the thing goes through. And then we have to go pick it up, you know? It's a process. So I don't upcharge too much. I just be like, okay, cool. You know, this gonna buy me a couple beers, a couple dinners, and I'm good, you know? But yeah, so I know you're mentioning some of our most memorable moments in the podcast.
Yeah. You want to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
I'll go first. So okay, well, there's a couple of them. There's a couple episodes. If you guys could leave us a comment, What is your favorite episode? And if you don't have a favorite, if you have several favorites, list them out. What were your favorites? So for a YouTuber standpoint, I got to categorize them. A little bit. For a YouTuber standpoint, so for me, Husham was awesome to talk to.
I knew you were going to say that.
Husham was just awesome. I think about it and I'm just like, okay, it was great to talk to Dabs and Blue, hearing their whole backstory, Dimmy, digital slang, El Jefe. There's just so many great people, but Husham, especially if you watch part 2 and you listen to the last 10 minutes, is just like, wow, like dude, like Husham is living with some serious stuff right now. So make sure you check that one out. That for as a YouTuber, like that especially the ending, just finding out. And I want to bring him back to see how he's doing and how he's coping with everything. So
yeah,
but now if we're talking about businesses, oh man, the guy from, we just talked to him too, from Blendjet.
Oh yeah, he's a talker. He's good. He's got stories for days.
He's got stories. We jumped on and it was just like, hey, he starts talking about Cyberpunk. And we were just kind of like, hey, let's just talk about like some games, and we are just kind of like talking about stuff like that. And I was just like, dude, we need to like stop talking and start recording, because it was a very good, solid conversation. So, and trust me, GoSun, the guy from there was great. There was Mark Forge, just so many people.
You know what made those specific people great was their passion for their products and their companies. Like GoSun, he was the inventor that built a business around that. You know what I mean? And Ryan from Blendjet was his idea. It was his baby. And you know, when you listen to that, it was really like, it was his passion to change lives, not his passion to blend shit.
Yeah. All right. So what about you?
Okay, so I'm happy that you kind of classified that into categories.
Because I know you will.
You have to really put that into categories. I mean, if we want to talk about, let's see, the best like streaming interview that we did, to me that was probably Dabs and Blue's love story. Because that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. We haven't done an episode like that. That one's very unique. We did like a love connection game in it, and it got very emotional at certain points. It was so much fun doing that one, and it really showed another side of the people in the streaming community. So I absolutely love that one. If we're talking about businesses that we've interviewed, for me, the one that stands out when I think about it, and I haven't really thought past this company, is Rendeavor. And I think maybe I'm just a big sappy purple grimace at heart, because that one was very emotional as well. And how their products are impacting, you know, people's lives and really making it better for them. So that one definitely stands out for me. You know, yeah, so those two are probably my two favorite ones right now. I was trying to think a little bit further, and like maybe an episode that me and you have shot together, and I haven't got that far, because everyone that we shoot together, we talk about so many different topics.
So, okay, I do have to mention one of them that I was thinking about too. That I was just like, man, that was a great episode too.
Mhm.
We did a what the hell episode, and we invited Jugs.
Yeah,
Um, that was a really good one because it kind of like we talked about some stuff. He was like, "Yeah, what the hell?" And then I forget what it was. Your ISP charging you for your own modem. His
that was
expression
hilarious.
was classic. He's just cracking up like, "What the hell?" When it comes to me and you, I have to agree with what Shrink and Sharon's saying right here. One of your best shows was your first show, your intro, when we got to know you, like us.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd have to agree.
I think that was really cool because, and you know what, it's not just that first one. That first one we got to know a lot about each other,
Yeah,
and because a lot of it we had no idea on a couple things, but we also did several episodes throughout the year since we started.
right.
Like there'd be a couple times I'd be like, "Hey, let's just record. I'm not gonna tell you what this is gonna be about. Well, let's just record." And he was just like, "Okay." And yeah, some of the thing like he was over here telling me like, "Oh yeah, I did play a saxophone." Well, I didn't really play it. I used it as a bat. And I'm like, "What?" And I got my buddy, one of my buddies that we used to work with like over 20 years ago. We were competing against each other. We were teaching groups that were competing against each other, and then we even taught together at the same groups,
Music.
music. And then he comes in and like, "Yeah, I used it as a baseball bat." We're both like, "A freaking saxophone? You know how expensive those things are?"
It was a rental.
I was like, "Oh, ouch." I don't care if it's a rental or not.
It was an alto. It wasn't a tenor. Okay.
Still, I was like, "Dang!" I'm like, "Freaking A, dude." So yeah, so we were like, "Oh."
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is my cousin and the guys over at I Just Watched. I know there's three of them. It's my cousin, Danny, and Eric, and I
Mhm.
always get them confused. So it's is it Danny and Eric? No.
We haven't met Danny yet. We've only shot with Eric and your cousin Junior.
Oh no, it's I don't think it's Danny. I forgot the third guy's name, but yeah, Eric. Um, great, great guys. We're gonna invite them again, and I was already telling them like, hey, maybe we'll do a live show with you guys on with us. So
We have an
um,
absolute blast when they come on, man.
yeah, there's just so many great episodes, and we've been trying to give you guys a lot of really good stuff.
Variety.
Um, a lot of variety, a lot anything tech related. That's the name of the game. Anything tech related, we're gonna try to get you guys a lot of information.
I almost want to say it's anything us related because it's whatever beyond we used to do, right?
Mhm.
There's some episodes that like for instance with is it Carl with Carl Drumtech, right?
Mhm.
Wasn't technically tech related. Especially the second episode, we were really just talking about motivating people, things that drive us, things that we're passionate about that we don't or we haven't got an opportunity to share on our regular platform. Just give you guys more of what we find interesting and sharing it with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Um, so a couple things here that you put a list together here. If you guys don't know, our podcast episodes are not edited. Even though they are scheduled ahead of time and we record ahead of time, they are not edited. We normally start and we go. It's very rare when we do. Sometimes it could be like audio issues when things like cut in and out. I know in the beginning we had a great ton of like either our mics because they're different or whoever we were interviewing, their Wi-Fi, their internet, or their mic. Um, but we've gone to the point where as soon as we hit record, we
We're
just
good.
we just go.
Yeah,
So
there's definitely been a process. I remember when I first started, or when we first started doing this podcast together, and I'd have conversations with people. And one of the most common questions that I would get asked was, how are you doing a podcast in a pandemic? Right? Because
Mhm.
everyone's mentality that I talked to was, in order to do a podcast, you have to be in the same room or the same vicinity as somebody. And technology is as advanced so far into we don't need to be in the same room together to create content together, which is great. A lot of people probably would assume that Rojas and I have met before. And that's actually not the case. I've never been in the same room as Rojas, but we're able to work together. We're able to create content together, and we're able to have enjoyable conversations, which turned out to be beyond the streams. So that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. And then just to keep in mind too, the only thing that you will notice that is an edit within the podcast is if there's any companies that we're going to shout out. So like the very, very beginning, and we even added a little timer. That way you can see how long it's going to take until the things are done. If you're just like, hey, I want to, like, as soon as it pops up, it says like 3 minutes and something seconds for the live show to start, or for the show to start. You could just skip to that. If you're just like, okay, cool, I know there's sponsorships, let me just skip ahead. But as soon as we start, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Streams. And as soon as we say peace out from start to finish, that's it. It is what it is.
Now, it didn't start that way though, Rojas, did it? Like, I mean, it looks pretty smooth the way that we do it now, the way that we interview people, the way that we work together. But we've actually been able to create a way to work behind the scenes while we're recording live so that we don't need to edit things. So we actually use Telegram a lot, and we use Telegram to actually communicate to each other while we're recording or while we're interviewing. And that way Rojas and I are not cutting each other off, or, you know, or staying on topic, or whatever the case is. So it's about using the tools that you have available to create a good product, a good service, a good good content for you guys to listen to enjoy, and to digest.
Yeah, for sure.